Hello and welcome back to my channel. As always, I am Matt from Cleveland Sex Therapy. I'm a licensed clinical therapist and AASEX certified sex therapist. In this second of a two-part video series, I want to continue to talk about one of the most groundbreaking sex-positive shows that has ever existed, Sex and the City. Here I'm going to talk about where the show went wrong and why we need to be more critical of not only shows like this, but all shows in general. Let's dive in. The original series was overwhelmingly white and treated New York City as like a monocultural playground. People of color were often background characters or reduced to stereotypes, and interracial relationships were awkwardly written or used as punchlines. As a white person who carries a ton of white privilege, I never noticed this until I went through my own journey. To its credit, and just like that, made intentional efforts to diversify its cast and storylines. It is not perfect, and sometimes it felt like it was overcorrecting, but representation almost always feels clumsy before it feels natural. Bisexuality was consistently framed as a phase, a joke, or threat. Carrie's storyline with a bisexual partner was handled with fear, judgment, and invalidation, reinforcing the harmful myth that bisexual people are confused, untrustworthy, or incapable of commitment. Speaking of that episode, the best part of it was Alanis Morissette floating around living her best life. This messaging does real damage then and now. It taught viewers that attraction outside rigid categories was something to be suspicious about rather than something to understand. Bi-erasure still exists today, even though it is considered the most represented group within the queer Gen Z community. Speaking of the queer community, queer characters existed mostly on the margins and were often reduced to caricatures. Although I love Stanford, he rarely got the spotlight. Trans identities were either mocked, misunderstood, or treated as shocking reveals rather than lived realities. And just like that, did take meaningful steps forward by including queer characters who were pretty complex, which is a positive even if the execution sometimes felt heavy-handed. And don't get me started on Che. Despite branding itself as sexually liberated, the show frequently slut-shamed women who enjoyed sex differently than Carrie or crossed unspoken acceptable lines. Samantha was celebrated and criticized in equal measure, often framed as excessive or emotionally avoidant rather than simply sexually autonomous. God, that episode where Carrie catches Samantha giving head and then judges her and Samantha goes, "There," and points at her, heartbreaking. The message was subtle, but powerful. Sexual freedom is acceptable, but only if it looks a certain way. Listen, I love sex. A lot of us do. But sex was often portrayed as something to be performed and narrated rather than felt. I get it, it is a TV show. But desire centered male validation, novelty, and spectacle instead of pleasure, nervous system safety, or embodied consent. There was almost no language for responsive desire, sensory attunement, or the reality that sex changes across stress, health, aging, and long-term relationships. If you want more info on this, I would definitely check out Emily Nagoski's works, Come As You Are and Come Together. Chemistry was treated as destiny. If things felt hard, the assumption was that something was wrong, rather than that intimacy just requires skill, communication, and repair. I mean, Berger broke up with her using a Post-it. That is pretty messed up. This helped normalize avoidant patterns, fear of commitment, and the idea that love should always feel effortless. For all the struggles that happened with Carrie and Big, at least there was communication. Hell, and just like that, Carrie and Aiden's relationship felt so real. I remember thinking, finally, show us the messiness of real relationships. As with most things in the 90s and early 2000s, thinness was the default. Bodies rarely changed. Eating, disability, chronic illness, and aging were mostly invisible. This is the way of the world back then. Even Samantha's cancer storyline prioritized sexual resilience over rest, grief, fear, and vulnerability. And just like that, has at least opened the door to conversations about menopause, grief, aging bodies, and loss, which truly matters deeply. But the damage was already done. Non-monogamy, kink, and alternative relationship structures were framed as jokes, threats, or temporary experiences. Curiosity outside monogamy was often met with shame or panic. This reinforced the idea that monogamy equals maturity and anything else equals dysfunction, which clinically just does not hold up. Opening up is tough, but at least show some characters succeeding with it so that people who need to see it can feel just that, seen. Sex and the City mattered. It cracked open conversations about women wanting sex, pleasure, and autonomy. But it also froze certain narratives in time that no longer serve us. We are allowed to appreciate the impact of the show while also naming the harm. Growth is not about canceling the past. It is about updating the story with better information, more compassion, and more inclusion. If this video resonated with you, give it a like. Drop a comment and tell me what Sex and the City got wrong. And if you want more sex positive, therapist grounded conversations about relationships, desire, and modern intimacy, make sure to subscribe. Until next time.